What's going on, everyone? My name is Data Dash, otherwise known as Nick, as you probably know me on the channel. We have a spectacular interview today. This is the first time on our channel. I'm going to be interviewing with a team member from the CINDICATOR ICO that I covered on my channel recently. He is the CTO and co-founder of CINDICATOR. Yuri, welcome to the call. Glad to have you on the interview.
Yeah, hey.
All right, awesome. So I was going to see if we could start on the interview with a little bit of an introduction on yourself, a little bit on the CINDICATOR team, what CINDICATOR trying to achieve in general. We'll spend about 5 to 10 minutes talking about it, but how about it? Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So about me, I love coding, and I started coding when I was 10, and all my youth I was software developer in different areas. And about 7 years ago, I started my path of entrepreneur and was working with different startups. And mostly my personal focus of interest was the phenomenon of intellectual systems. So I was researching questions of the mind, of consciousness, of collective intelligence, neural networks, artificial intelligence, and all stuff about the mind, and about looking a way to find a greater mind that will solve all the problems of humanity. So that was my passion since I was very small. CINDICATOR was started like an experiment that was researching the phenomenon of wisdom of the crowds that was described in a book of James Shoryovsky. So it's quite a well-known phenomenon, and we have read several experiments with that and decided to make the experiments by ourselves. And that's how we started the startup that called The Vault.
Awesome. You know, I was going to bring up, I wanted to bring up real quick, you're talking about examples of the wisdom of the crowd. I really love the example you all used. I think it was in your white paper about the people estimating the weight of the bull. I remember you all were using that as an example of the wisdom of the crowd. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, so that is a pretty well-known example with the bull, and that was run in the beginning of 20th century, and the big audience of people was asked about the weight of a bull, and the process of gathering their opinions was decentralized, and each of the participants was very different from another, and he made his personal suggestions from his unique perspective, with his unique background and his unique vision. They did not communicate to each other, so in these terms, the process was decentralized. Mm-hmm. So it was taken without biases, and they did not make any biases into suggestions of each other. And another property of that process was that they all were motivated. So there was a prize that they were struggling for, and the most accurate one was promised to receive the prize. And the result was astonishing, that the crowd was more accurate than the professional in that sphere. The professional who estimated the weight of the bull.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was the first experiment on public, and it is very old, and it is very well described in many books. And after that, some groups of people made the research, and there are some works that are publicly available. And we decided to create the that performs the process of gathering opinions from the crowd automatically. But we wanted to get the answers and to work with the future, with the present, like with the bull. So that crowd has seen the bull with their eyes, but we ask the questions of the future. And we started experiments 2 years ago. So we did these experiments in all the areas like fashion, sports, financial markets, technology, politics, arts, and technology. So in all of these different life spheres, we found out that there is a way to get the valuable predictive analytics from the crowd. And that's how we started. Yeah. And we have a long way researching this phenomenon before we came to the hybrid intelligence, where we combine this collective intelligence and the intelligence of machine, the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept, Yuri. As someone who's really interested, I've read markets for the past 6 to 7 years, usually in traditional stock markets. And moving over to cryptocurrency, it's cool to see that you've also tapped into both of those markets, both stock and equities markets and cryptocurrency. And, I used the mobile app myself. I tried it out a little bit. And I got to say, I love how so early on you already have a functioning product. I really appreciate that for an ICO. And I loved how simple it was. I could just start making predictions. There was questions. I remember I answered some on NVIDIA stock. I remember I answered one for, I think, Bitcoin. Like, there was a certain price range, and I could guesstimate the price range of it. And it's so cool to think that in the concept of hybrid intelligence, you're taking the concept of, the opinion of the crowd, but at the same time measuring those opinions by how successful they are. So this whole concept of hybrid intelligence is fascinating to me. And I remember in the video I'd mentioned the concept where actually when you guys actually got to apply the concept in Russian exchange, and the results were higher than the best guesser of the entire crowd of people who were participating. So I think it's an interesting concept. I don't think many people in equities markets really understand how much potential lies behind hybrid intelligence, but nonetheless, I think it's fantastic. And I think it's cool to see that your team has come so far in delivering on your promise and delivering the tech.
Yeah. I'm very excited with that also. Thank you.
No problem. Well, yeah, now that we got a little bit of a general understanding, I bet most people who are watching the interview have, seen the video that I produced previously talking about it. I think it'd be good if we could answer a few questions that the community reached out to me and gave some feedback on. And I was just going to run through them and see if you could give maybe a little answer to try to, kind of lower the fears here for some people who are wondering about ICOs, because I always tell my channel to be skeptical of them and ask questions. So the first one I was going to ask real quick, outside of the Russian exchange example, you said you've worked with a lot of VCs and a lot of partners out there in the finance world. Do you have some extra data that might show how well CINDICATOR has been able to predict the market so far?
There were, we had 14 trials with hedge funds and banks. So we provided them signals and investment ideas on a daily basis through API, like minutes before the event. And we did that during a different period of time, from 1 month to 4 months. And all of them, and we did it in private mode. So like we were testing the B2B business model. Thought that we're gonna run the business of selling the investment ideas to different hedge funds and banks. Okay. And the result was all the same at the moment. When we finished the trial, the hedge fund or the bank said that they want to sign the contract with us, but they want to monopolize the data and that they want exclusive access to that.
Oh, wow. So they asked for exclusive, the information that they were gathering previously for the future contract, they wanted it exclusive. No one else could access it?
Yes. And actually, I can say that this is one of the main reasons why we decided to move to blockchain. So actually, any entity that receives these signals, it wants to utilize the value that is in the signals only by itself.
Awesome.
So it has the value has its capacity, so it's impossible to give it to. So there is only one entity, and we decided that we shouldn't give all the value to just one central bank, and we decided that that entity that utilizes the value must be the ecosystem of Syndicator. So that must be mental investors. First of all, those people who are making these accurate predictions, they must receive the most of the value from it.
You know, I think that's.
We decided to build.
Sorry, no, you go. My bad. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I wanted to finish my thoughts here. So we understood that there is only one way to build the one entity, and we decided to build it. So that entity must be the ecosystem of Syndicator.
I was going to say, I think that's awesome because, you know, there's a competitor in this kind of space, Numeraire, as you probably well know, and people get kind of mixed up. They say, oh, you know, there's a lot of people competing in the predictions market. You know, I got to say, you all beat out Numeraire in that sense because Numeraire is very centralized. It tells people to go out and compete for the tokens that they offer, the numeric tokens. There's a very limited supply, but they tell them, like, all right, you can go out and compete with them in the tournaments, use your algorithms and help us out with investments. It keeps it very centralized. You know, Numeraire, the company behind the token, is very centralized, and they gather all that information. They don't allow people to collect it. So on your case with Syndicator, I think that's fantastic. I think that applying it to the blockchain, applying people to being able to go out and purchase the Syndicator tokens and utilize that information, I think that's so much better than trying to keep it all centralized. So very good call on your part. I think that's awesome you decided to do that rather than keeping it centralized.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So I guess I'll move on to another question here. You know, we kind of did talk about this earlier. I wanted to bring up the topic about scoring the analyst. The question stated, will the prediction score of analysts be recorded so that the analysis of the best predictors carry more weight in the prediction algorithm? So this is pretty much estimating, you know, am I going to be as equal as someone who does poor, or am I going to be as equal as someone who does great within the predictions algorithm, or are we going to be ranked based off our previous history? And I guess that kind of tailors towards the question of explaining hybrid intelligence.
Yeah, actually, the scoring algorithm is what is always evolving in our system, and we're always changing the way how to make the approach to the scoring. I can say that what we have at this moment, and I'm sure that it will evolve a lot in several months in future. So at this moment, we have different models that we run on different types of questions, and actually even for different types of securities that we're asking our analysts to analyze. We have separate models with its own parameters, and we have that time series for each of the person, how accurate he was answering these types of questions during the last period of time. And depending on this time series, we are making the scoring that we put into the model of this type of question.
Awesome, cool. So if you've been correct on, let's say, for example, predicting stock prices over the past 2 or 3 months on the previous questions that you've answered on the Syndicator app, you are given priority in the sense of guesstimating the future, kind of guessing where things are going to go. So
yeah, and actually, each of the person who gets into the system for the first time and start answering the question, he just gets the points. Like their reward, but the scoring in the machine learning algorithms does not take this person into account for at least for 2 weeks before it learns about this person. So he starts to earn his weight of trust just sometime after he is involved into the system on a daily basis.
I like that. That's good. Building that kind of long-term sense of trust within the algorithm, because, you know, someone can make 1 or 2 great calls and then the next day, you know, they could be out the window or not participate in the app. So I think that that's a perfect way to approach it in that sense. So the next question I want to talk about, it seems like everything has been perfect so far with Syndicator. It seems like you guys have the tech already delivered so people can start participating in it. You have the team. I love what the team's doing and everything. It seems like you're delivering on your promises, and you have, as you stated, programming experience behind you. And it seems like the market's there. I think we all can agree this concept of hybrid intelligence is pretty neat, whether or not we want to invest in it or not. But the real question I want to ask you is to get to more specifics on the token itself. I think a lot of people think the technology might be there, but they're curious about whether or not the token's going to be a valuable asset to hold. And at the ICO, you're dropping, I think it's 1.5 billion Syndicator tokens. So I was just curious, in your opinion, what really gives the Syndicator token value? And we kind of talked generally about how you can use it to purchase information, but I'd love you to go a little bit more in depth just so people could get a clear understanding.
Yeah, so the main idea is that this is the utility token that helps us build the ecosystem and the internal economics of the ecosystem, of Syndicator ecosystem. So this will be the currency to get access to different products, different analytical products that are based on prediction.
Awesome, cool. So yeah,
and this is the main idea that gives the value. Another thing that these tokens will be the incentives for the forecasters. So each of the forecaster will get these tokens by the end of each month, according to the number of points that he earns for his prediction. So the more accurate forecaster is, the more tokens he will get. And so he could choose either to keep them for himself and to use it, or to sell it on exchange or any way in personal communication. So this is these two main aspects of the token.
Awesome. Yeah. On the first one, I think we could obviously see that as a real market and stuff, in the sense of selling the information to companies and them having to use the token to purchase it. I think that'll be a really good way to really build value behind the Syndicator platform. And on the second one, you were talking about, reward systems for the token. So I was just curious, could you explain a little bit about how that reward system works with the token? Like, pretty much who's going to be receiving the tokens? I understand there's Bitcoin being distributed right now until the token launches for a reward system every once in a while. But how does the distribution work, and what can an average distribution look like, and who would receive those tokens?
You mean the distribution in the future life of Syndicator?
Yeah, the future life. How much people, like, let's say, for example, how often would tokens be distributed to the really good investors, and how many of those good investors, as a percentage of the community, might get a reward for their participation?
We will distribute the token to each of the forecaster that has positive balance of points on his account by the end of each month. So we will redistribute the tokens by the end of each month.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, no, that completely answers. I was just curious how often it happened on a time basis. That's perfect. All right. So I wanted to answer a question that one of my viewers, Pablo, had asked me, and I further asked him about this. In traditional stock markets, there's a concept of having stock buybacks. You buy back a stock to increase the value as the central, company behind it. I was going to ask you, because he had read the white paper and he mentioned that there was supposedly something around buying back tokens and how Syndicator and the Syndicator team would acquire tokens back. Is that a goal you have in the future, to possibly produce more value and show your backing of the token itself?
Actually, the main idea of this is the circulation of the tokens. So we want to provide the circulation. When we buy them back, that's where we take them from to distribute to forecasters.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
And this is the way to publicly validate the value of the products, of the analytical products that our ecosystem provides. So this, we expect this to be a public proof that will be a reason of growing demand for the products that our forecasters produce.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome to try to build that value case scenario for it and really get people behind the use of the token. So I like that. Well, you know, I was talking a little bit earlier about using the mobile app that you all already have produced for Syndicator. You can go on the App Store and download right now. I was just curious, though, you know, what does it take for me to become a forecaster? Can anyone really jump into this? And is there any kind of downside to me making a misprediction on this platform? I'd really love to hear what your coverage is on that.
Yeah, actually, any person can get into the platform and start making predictions and market analysis. But our system, first of all, does not take into account those who has not earned their reputation inside the model. Mm-hmm. And after the system scores you, after some time you're making predictions periodically, it understands either you are correct or not, either you are accurate or not. And if you have the stability in your mistakes, so if you, let's say, answer with wrong answers, stable wrong answers for 3 months, it learns from you that you have the same mistake all the time, and it makes the correction to your answers. So this is how the machine learning algorithm, one of the models, which is based on clusterization, puts you into the cluster of those who are making the same mistake and makes the correction to your answer.
I love that. Awesome. All right, so I guess we'll take it down to one last question. This was something having to do with the token supply and the hard cap. It says, based on USD prices per token and the hard cap, you have a total of 1.5 billion tokens to be allocated. Is this fixed or open to future inflation? And a lot of people were also wondering, you know, why is there such a large supply to it? But I think we can start off with the question of, is it fixed? Is there going to be any inflation to the amount of tokens in circulation? I think that's
no. We do not expect any inflation. So the total supply in the ICO will be fixed.
Okay, cool, awesome. That's perfect to hear it's fixed, because that's a big thing on my channel. I always talk about having that fixed supply. I think that's steady. It's going to give your tokens a lot of room to grow without the extra circulation into the supply. I think that's fantastic. Well, Yuri, I think that's about most of the questions we got. I really want to say thank you for coming on today. You were actually the first interview on my channel, so this went really well, I think, and it was really nice talking to you. And I'm very ambitious personally about the Syndicator project. I hope that everything goes smooth for you all. I'd love to keep up to date, figure out more about it. But I think you all have had a wonderful campaign so far to get it out there, and I think you all have a wonderful concept. So keep at it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your opinion, and thank you for being the first on your channel. It's an honor for me.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. All right. Well, anyways, everyone, that's going to be it for the interview. Definitely leave a comment down below if you all liked having Yuri on here and if you like to see more interviews. If you got any more criticism or questions, I know Yuri and his team are relatively busy, and I am as well. We'll try to get towards answering questions. I'll try to be the first one to get to it because I know they're very busy. But if we can get to answering any questions, we'll try our best. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.